Hello everyone! Let me make sure the microphone is working. Da-da-da! Can you hear me? I think you can hear me pretty well. Hello everyone! Welcome to today's stream! Da-da-da-da-da! Where we will be reading some more of the Minecraft YouTube fanfiction. Yee! Hope you're all doing wonderful today. I'm doing pretty well. Yep, not too much happening. My life is a bore, as usual so far, besides from these fun streams. But, last time we got to meet Purpled in this story, and we got Tommy and Purple to reunite and talk a little, which was very nice. And we only ended up reading one chapter last time. I'm hoping we can at least read 2 this time, but we'll see how it goes. Hopefully my voice can last long. I've been like resting my voice all day long, hoping I can read for like a long period of time today. So hopefully that goes well. Yes, chipper and ready for the darkness. Ha 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 ha. Mwah ha 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 ha. But okay, I think without further ado, let's just dive right in. Please forgive me if I stutter, hesitate, or mispronounce anything, and for any noise in the background. Let's go. Sunsets and Freedom, Chapter 14. Can I even bounce back from this again? Trigger warnings for kidnapping, non-consensual drug use, abuse, implied torture. Sapnap, Carl cried, throwing himself into a hug. Sapnap laughed as Quackity barreled into them too. What are you doing here? Quackity asked, after they had all gotten inside. Sapnap rolled his eyes. Frickin' Dream. He said he needed something from the city, so we're here looking for it or whatever. He laughed, but stopped when he saw the look the other two were giving him. Is everything okay? Carl and Quackity looked at each other and then back to him. What is he looking for? Carl asked with a nervous smile. Sapnap frowned. I don't know. He hasn't told us. It didn't seem to calm the two of them down in the slightest. Quackity was on his phone in an instant, and Carl decided to try and lead Sapnap into the kitchen, obviously trying to distract him. Although when they got there, all they had him do was sit at the table. What's going on? Sapnap asked. Something's come up at work, and we're sort of worried for you, Carl muttered. Sapnap's frown only deepened. Why? He asked. Before he could get an answer, Quackity came into the room and shoved his phone in front of Sapnap's face. Do you know this kid? He asked, showing Sapnap a picture of Tommy that he, Tommy, had clearly not been informed of before the picture was taken. He looked disoriented and was in the middle of an eating and clearly startled by the camera being shoved in his face. Sapnap frowned at it. Yeah, that kid broke into Dream's warehouse a while back. He managed to get George and I down. George was out for an hour. Oh my gosh, what happened to him? He asked. The picture showed Tommy in a t-shirt, one much more suited for him than the old shirts he had been wearing from Wilbur, Techno, and Rambo. This shirt showed off a large amount of the scars on his body, including one that stretched across his entire collarbone. From the looks of the scar, you must have been able to see the bone from the cut. That's Tommy, and he didn't break into Dream's warehouse that day, Carl said. Sapnap looked at him. He broke out, Quackity told him. Sapnap blinked. What? Tommy was kidnapped by Dream, Carl said, and was brutally tortured for about 12 years. You're frickin' with me, and it's not funny. Sapnap crossed his arms, shaking his head. Sapnap, we wouldn't mess with you about this, Carl sighed. Yeah, the kid. We have multiple people confirming, including Puns and Errett. Not to mention Carl has seen things that suggest it as well, Quackity told him. I was transported and I saw Dream, carrying a child that looked a lot like Tommy, Carl told him and shifted. It was a quick glimpse. I'm sorry, Sapnap, but he created both the Wither and the Prophet. What? Tommy wasn't the only child he kidnapped. Pun's younger brother was also kidnapped by Dream. He was only 2. He was the Prophet on Dream's behalf, and we're currently trying to help him and make sure he's safe while we take down Dream, Quackity muttered. Dream wouldn't, Sapnap yelled. If Tommy broke into the warehouse, why did he go through you and George? If you hadn't seen him before, wouldn't it make sense that he'd stay in place? Carl asked. Well, he was a kid and he wouldn't know better, Sapnap protested. A kid with those kinds of scars would, Quackity added. How many floors does Dream's warehouse have? What do you mean floors? It's a warehouse, Sapnap told him, his arms crossed. You haven't seen an elevator? Quackity pressed. Well, Carl pulled out a scanner picture Punz had sent them of the compound. It showed just how many floors were underneath it, not to mention the complexity of it all. He pushed his phone onto the table in front of Sapnap. Sapnap stared at it and clearly recognized the images as a warehouse, or rather the compound. I don't understand. Why is he doing this? Sapnap asked, not looking at the two, simply staring at the phone. Quackity and Carl shared a look. We don't know exactly. Tommy is still slightly reluctant to talk about, but he doesn't know why. We're waiting on Punz's brother, but he was apparently heavily drugged throughout that time he was kept there, Carl commented. Drugged? Sapnap asked. With a power like his, to prevent him from escaping he had to be, Quackity told him. How? If Tommy escaped alone, how did Punz's brother get away? Dream basically sold him to Punz, not knowing Punz was his brother, Carl explained. At least that's what we've been told. Punz isn't very open, but the things we've been able to piece together from Tommy and Wilbur, that's what we've gathered. Sold? A kid? Sapnap whispered, finally looking at them. Apparently, Tommy thought he was dead when that happened. Fortunately, they're both alive and getting the help and relationships they need, Quackity told him. Yeah, S-levels need close relationships with each other, even more than A-levels, right? Sapnap remembered. Yeah, and two of them were kept in a place where they could bond, but not have any type of physical contact with each other. Tommy's doing much better with our S-levels. I'm sure they'll heal much faster after Purple's with them as well, Carl said. Do you have any idea what Dream's looking for here? Quackity asked. Do you think he knows Tommy is here? No, I actually have no clue why we're here. I'm only here because I wanted to see you guys and George just tagged along. We all knew it was Dream. All I know is that Dream wanted George and I to stay at the hotel, but I hadn't been there yet, so I left. Sapnap told them. It's much more of a coincidence to overlook this. He has to be here looking for Tommy, Quackity said. Should we move Tommy, or just fortify the frick out of this place? We'll have to ask Phil probably, not to mention we have to ask Tommy about it first. See what he wants to do, Carl added. Whatever Dream is looking for, whether it's the kid or not, he keeps looking down at his phone, Sapnap told them, like he's constantly checking his phone. Do you think you can get it from him? Carl asked. Yeah. Maybe we can figure it out. Sam can hack it probably, Quackity commented. I don't know, Sapnap paused. I can try to, and I'll have a call with George first. We should probably let him know too. He'll be harder to convince. Dream is the only other A-level he really interacts with. There's plenty of A-levels at SBI. He likes Wilbur and Nikki, right? Quackity asked. Yeah, but they're not Dream, Sapnap sighed, pushing his hair back. We know this is a lot. It was when we first heard about it too. We didn't believe it until we met Tommy, and he knew just a little bit too much about Dream. We're sorry, Carl told him, rubbing his back. Don't be, Sapnap said. It's his fault. I'll call George and let him know that he has to come here. The two nodded and sat down around the table, and Sapnap pulled out his phone. The line rang a bit. Sapnap had put on speaker before George answered. Dream frickin' left, he said before Sapnap could say anything. He what? Sapnap asked, stunned. Yeah, he left. He left without us and said he forgot he'll come back tomorrow for us. I can't believe him, George huffed. He was obviously stressed and definitely pissed off at him. At Dream, Carl and Quackity shared a look and rushed up, gathering coats and shoving on their shoes. We're going to SBI now, Quackity said, and I'm going to push my limits tonight. Sapnap nodded, understanding what was happening. What's going on? George asked. George, you need to trust me on this. You need to get to SBI now. It doesn't matter how or anything like that. You just need to get here now, Sapnap told him, rushing out the door with Carl and Quackity. What? Sapnap? What's going on? George asked. But Sapnap heard rustling on the other side of the line. He was probably listening to Sapnap, but was clearly unsure. Sapnap and him were rarely serious with each other, especially not with Carl and Quackity in the room. Everyone understood how dangerously serious this was right now, though. Dream. He's done something and we need to make sure he didn't just make everything worse. We'll explain everything when you get there, Sapnap said. More shuffling and the hotel door opening and closing told Sapnap he was leaving. Yeah, okay, George said. Are things okay, though? No, I don't think so, Sapnap said. Quackity slid into the driver's seat, Carl in the back and Sapnap in the passenger seat. Quackity barely waited for the two of them to put on their seatbelts on before speeding off, clearly putting the pedal on the floor. Knowing him and his powers, he'd probably just avoid any disasters, but probably give a ton of people many heart attacks. Okay, George said. One of the last things anyone in SBI expected was for Carl and Quackity with George and Sapnap in tow to burst into the apartment. What the frick? Wilbur asked. Where's Tommy? Is he okay? Quackity asked, not answering Wilbur. He's fine. He's at Tubbo's place, downstairs, Phil said. Why? Quackity and Carl looked at each other. Dream was in the city and then suddenly left, leaving both George and Sapnap there. He wouldn't tell them why he was here or let them leave the hotel room, Carl explained. Downstairs, now, Phil growled, and they all piled back into the elevator. It was a tight squeeze, but they managed. The door was open when they got there. It didn't look promising. They rushed inside to see Schlatt on the floor, face down, cut on his head. He was not conscious. Quackity was by his side, checking his pulse, making sure he was still alive. He's okay, just out, Quackity said. There was a large metal candle holder on the ground next to him, probably that knocked him out in the first place. There was a loud thud followed by a string of curses and another thud. Techno looked around before heading to Tubbo's room. In here, he called. Tubbo's dresser was in front of the closet and thumping noises had come from inside. Everyone went into the room as Techno moved the dresser back to the original spot and opened the door. Tubbo stumbled out. He got Tommy, Tubbo breathed. The meeting room was on lockdown and everyone was in there. Rambu couldn't leave Tubbo's side and the two sat in the corner. Everyone else sat around the table, trying to figure things out and what to do next. Despite being almost overcome with anger, the three founding SBI members were smart enough to know that they had to have a plan if they were going to get Tommy back. So Dream came in, probably zoomed through a back door or something, and headed upstairs. Knocked Schlatt out, locked Tubbo in the closet, and took Tommy? Puffy asked. Seems like it, Quackity answered. Why didn't he take Tubbo? Sam asked. He's after S levels. He should have taken Tubbo too, especially if there was no one else around and he had an escape route planned. He couldn't have known, Phil answered. He had no way of knowing that Tubbo was an S level. There was no reason for him to take Tubbo. Not to mention it's kind of hard to take a struggling, indestructible kid while still holding on to Tommy, Wilbur muttered. Even if he did know, he'd have to take one of them and cut his losses there. At least he wouldn't have to start from scratch with Tommy. Let's back up and start with how did Dream even find Tommy? Techno asked. All we know is that Dream was looking at his phone a lot, Carl replied to for Sapnap and Quackity. A tracker? Sam asked. We checked that. Any type of tracker would not be in his clothes, and we would have found it if it was on his body. Not to mention our metal detectors would have picked up any kind of chip, Techno told him. Osmosium, Schlatt answered, an ice pack on his head. What? The gloves, he said. The osmonium in the gloves. It's hard to find that much osmium contained in one area. It probably took him a while, but he probably tracked the osmium and found it on Tommy. Frick, Wilbur whispered. What now? Jack asked. We keep going with the plan, Phil said. We'll keep going and take down Dream and save Tommy before he gets a chance to hurt him any more than he already has. He has to come back for us, George said. He doesn't know we know. He's coming back to pick us up. Yeah. We'll ask him to go to the warehouse, compound, and we'll lead him outside where you can ambush him, Sapnap said. We'll help. Yeah, that sounds good, Wilbur muttered. Especially because he'll have to wait to do anything to Tommy until after tomorrow since he's coming to get these two, Techno said. Can we really just wait here for this? Aerith asked. Unfortunately, I don't see any other choice that won't lead us to the two of them disappearing for good this time, Phil murmured. The group nodded. We're all staying here tonight, on the same floor preferably. We don't need to lose anyone else or have Dream be warned. We're on full lockdown as of right now. No phone calls, no one in or out either. If you attempt, you will be arrested. Techno's voice boomed throughout the room. The group nodded again, all of them just wanting the children to be safe. We just got him back, and now we're going to lose him again, Wilbur whispered to Phil and Techno as the others started to talk amongst themselves. No, we're not, Phil said. We're getting him back. I promised nothing would hurt him if he came here, but we just gave him up to Dream, Tubbo told them, a teary eye. We should have done better, yes, but we can't change what happened. No one knew Dream was in the city. We couldn't have done anything about this. He outsmarted us all, Phil told them. Sitting here blaming ourselves won't do anything, especially not for him. A phone ring suddenly out loudly interrupted everyone. They looked at the group and saw it was Sapnap. It's Dream. Should I answer it? He asked. The group walked over to them and nodded. Yes, but say one wrong thing and it's over, Techno growled, making the slicing gesture over his neck. Sapnap nodded and pressed answer. What do you want, a-hole? Sapnap asked in a bored yet casual tone. Wilbur was impressed. Dream laughed on the other side. Yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot you guys came along. You're still in with George in the hotel, right? Dream asked. Sapnap scoffed. Yep. Where we've been this whole friggin' time. Since we're leaving tomorrow, we're not going anywhere. Why? Sapnap asked. No reason. Just making sure you're both together. George barely knows the city. I can hear you, you know, George huffed. Speaker would have been nice to know, Dream laughed. Taking us home would have been nice too, Sapnap countered. Not forgetting about your best friends too, George called. Touché, Dream answered. Anyway, since I'm close to getting down there anyway, I'll be back tomorrow. I'll text you when I get there. Thanks a lot, Sapnap huffed, and the two hung up. I hated that, George muttered. That makes two of us, Sapnap told him. Both of them dropped the act. Although it seemed George had gotten a little lost in it and wasn't completely acting, that was something Wilbur was looking out for. He had to check both of them, and neither was going to betray them and tell Dream. At least not now. They both planned to help them as best as they could. Good to know. I'm going to glitch the building, George said suddenly. What? Sapnap said. Quackney and Carl all asked as well. Once we get Dream out of that warehouse compound thing, I'm going to glitch the building and make sure that he can't get back in, George answered. Whoa, Tommy might still be in there. I don't think glitching the thing would be good for him, Wilbur protested. Not to mention that could make you pass out for like a week or something, Sapnap told him. Yeah, something of that size. It's not going to go well, Quackity added. It's only for the first level, George explained. I won't do the whole thing. I don't think I can. Also, Tommy will be fine. It only affects what I want it to. I'll just make it so the building, the top floor, disappears. Dream won't be able to get in and grab Tommy if I do that. I could probably burn his leg so he can't run very far either, Sapnap muttered. He could heal it, but he'll only be able to do a short burst running after that. We'll be able to catch up with him. These are good plans, Phil said. George, if you glitch the top floor away, can we still get to Tommy, he asked. George nodded. I'll keep the elevator there. It'll just be the elevator in the lower levels, he explained. Okay, we may be able to do this, Wilbur huffed. The doors to the meeting room were slammed open at a moment, startling everyone inside. A couple of powers activated due to the loud noise, but no one was hurt. Where the frick is Tommy? Purple yelled, and a timid-looking Ponk and a slightly proud Puns were behind him. And that's the end of chapter 14. Yay! That one was a bit of a shorter chapter, I suppose. Okay, drinking water, hydration check, drink. Chapter 15, Hellfire shall rain down upon you by those you love and hate alike. Trigger warnings for kidnapping, mentions of self-harm, non-consensual drugging, mentions of drowning in a metaphor, and burning. Let the chapter begin. You are purpled? Tebo asked. The three of them had been shoved in a room with a TV, a couple of couches, a mini fridge, and a bathroom after Purpled and his caretakers had burst into the room. Yeah, he answered, casually pressing himself against the wall, pretty far away from the other two. Tommy told us a lot about you. He misses you, Rambu muttered. I thought he was dead. The Wither hadn't surfaced in almost a year, and that's not like Dream. I thought Dream had killed him after he tried to prevent me from leaving and giving me away, Purple told them. He thought you were dead too. A fair assumption, Purple said. We aren't going to hurt you. Tubbo tilted his head. We're S levels too. I'm sure you could have guessed. What are your powers? Purple asked. I'm sure you know mine. I'm invincible or indestructible, Tubbo answered. Rambu went next. I can teleport anything or anyone anywhere. I just need a vague idea, like a name or something. But I'm kinda iffy with it. I had to suppress it for a majority of the time I had it. I was a late presenter. I was early, Purple said. How old were you again, when you were labeled? Tubbo asked. 2, Purple answered. I don't remember it. I don't even remember the containment center I was placed in either. You're not missing much, Rambu huffed. You've been in one? Purple asked. Yeah, I presented and then was sent there. I presented at 8 and then was immediately placed in a containment center. They suppressed my powers and kept me sedated. I have memory issues now and my powers are slightly messed up, Rambu told him. The two, Tubbo and Rambu, of them felt connected to Purple. It was probably because he was an S level too, but he just seemed right in the fact that he wasn't as chatty or friendly as Tommy was off-putting. It made sense. There was no reason to blame him, but even though Tommy was never really made contact with them, he would still be near them, and the fact that Purple was staying far away from them felt wrong. They were pretty sure he felt it too, especially because he kept shifting towards them and then realizing what he had done and shifted back. Talking to him felt as natural as talking to each other or to others at SBI. Despite the fact that they just met, it was nice and yet still awkward, and that he was on the complete other side of the room. I was drugged too, Purple muttered. He started itching at the bandages, coating his arms, although he never managed to actually scratch at his skin. They briefly wondered about the bandages, but opted to not asking about it. Not yet, anyway. Maybe when they were closer or got to know each other better. Yeah, I'm mainly sedated, never really drugged, Rambo muttered, remembering how Tommy told everyone about him. Don't compare us, Purple said, slightly harshly, but it was clear he didn't have an ill intent by it. You were in a containment center all the same. Plus, you said it messed up your powers. Mine work perfectly fine still. Don't compare. Someone drowning 6 feet of water versus someone drowning in 10 is still drowning. Punk had mentioned things like that before. Purple knew that he had it bad, but comparing trauma wasn't something he particularly liked doing, especially not if someone felt invalidated because of what they went through. It sucks the way people treat us, Tubbo muttered, crossing his arms and sliding down the wall until he was sitting on the floor. We're not objects, Purple muttered, following suit. People are always going to be cruel and discriminatory, Rambu said, joining the other two on the floor. But we're okay now. Yeah, Tubbo muttered, his chin on his knees. When did you present? Purple asked Tubbo. I was like 4, I think. My dad freaked the frick out. Since there had been another S level, you before me, it wasn't as big a deal, but people still freaked out over the fact that there were now 2 S levels. My dad had been struggling when I was born, and my mother kind of just left me with him, so we weren't doing too well, especially not with the diagnosis, you see, Tubbo told them. That sucks. Apparently my parents freaked out too. Punz told me about it. He thinks our mom might have passed out. I think I would have too, Rambu huffed. First an A level, then an S level? Do you guys know Punz well? Purple asked. We worked with him a couple of times. Once, maybe twice, Tubbo answered. Why? I don't know him, Purple said. Didn't even know I had a brother until they told me like yesterday or something. What are they like? Well, Punz is really good at his job, Tubbo said. Good at not really showing emotion while still being affected by his line of work enough to show he's still human. Yeah, they have morals. They don't take out kids or people for no reason. There has to be a reason for their job, Rambo told him. Besides that, we don't really know Punz all that well. You might be better off asking Wilbur, Tubbo said. They worked together a bit more than we did. Punz treated us well, though. I guess we were like you, so Punz probably saw us as you. Purple made a humming noise, and the 3 of them were left in silence. We're going to go with the group to save Tommy, right? Rambu asked. I am, Tubbo said. They're not keeping me away, Purple answered. I just drove 20 hours to get here only to find out that Dream has him again. I'm not letting anyone else frick this up. I was there when Dream came in. Everything happened so fast. All of a sudden we had a glass shattering and I was upset because I thought my dad had started drinking again, even when he's been sober for years now. But then I was shoved into a closet and I couldn't get out, Tubbo muttered, tucking his knees in closer. I tried to break down the door with myself since I couldn't be hurt, but it wouldn't budge no matter how hard I slammed into it. Don't blame yourself. The only reason Dream isn't an S level is because he has drawbacks. Unlike us, he's limited but powerful. Without those limits, he would be an S level. Besides, it doesn't really matter your level. You're a kid and he's an adult, Purple said. You go to therapy? Rambo asked. Purple blinked. Sorry, that was weird. I go to Puffy a lot, and what you said makes sense and sounds a lot like her. She's my therapist, in case that wasn't clear. Oh, yeah, Purple said. Punz gave me to Ponk because he was a doctor and trained in psychology. Ponk is like a therapist, I guess. That's nice. Therapy is good for you, Tubbo said. I go to Puffy too sometimes, just because. That's good, Purple muttered. Although it's kind of weird when your therapist and older sister are constantly flirting, Ramu shuddered. Tubbo laughed loudly. They're not dating, but it's really funny to see them flirt after Rambu's sessions, Tubbo said. Purple laughed as well. As long as Ponk doesn't flirt with himself, I'm good. I already got enough of that from his scheduled phone calls with Sam, Purple made a gagging noise. Sam's nice, though, Tubbo told him. I'm sure he is, but they're so awkward and only hearing one side of the conversation somehow makes it worse. I can imagine, Rambo muttered. Purple shrugged. So Tommy, Purple said. Right. So I'm thinking we go with the plan of already in place, but we add our specialties into the mix, Tubbo smirked. I'm listening. Jump to a different room. No one's getting to those kids, Ponk crossed his arms. We had no clue Dream knew where he was, or that he was nearby, not to mention there was an S level and an A level, and Dream had been able to subdue both of them. If he had known where Purple was, I doubt you'd be able to stop him either, Wilbur said through gritted teeth. Ponk cocked his head to the side. Thanks to you, he might, Ponk replied. The building is in complete lockdown. No one can get in or out without blowing a hole in the side of the building, which would be hard for even Sam to do, Phil assured. Ponk replied. What's the plan? Puns asked, interrupting the tense atmosphere. Sapnap and George were left here by Dream. They're going to the warehouse, and we're going to follow. After that, we're going to trap him. Nikki can knock him out in the confusion, Wilbur explained. Other than that, Techno and I can predict his movements and stop him before he can leave. Who's staying with the kids? Ponk asked. We're going with you, Purple said as the three of them walked into the room. Absolutely not, Techno replied. Well, technically you can't stop us, Tubbo pointed up helpfully. Phil raised an eyebrow. Oh, he asked. Rambu can teleport, Tubbo said. I've been there and I know the layout like the back of my hand. Rambu and whoever and I can go get Tommy while everyone else is busy fighting Dream. In case it goes wrong, at least, we don't have to have him disappear without grabbing Tommy. It's too fuzzy for me to change the odds in good conscience. I can do specific things a lot, but it'll help to know what I should and shouldn't change, Purple told them. Fuzzy? Techno asked. I don't just change the odds, I can see them. I can see the probability of everything happening and I can change it. But the more I change, the less likely I can see what's going to happen if I change it, Purple said. Like the butterfly effect, Ponk cut in. Purple nodded. Say I change it so that I get a free plane flight. Well, if I can't see what happens, if I do get that, I change the odds from 0.0023% to 100%. Someone who bought a plane ticket could be hit by a car and the ticket goes flying and ends up in my hands. But in the process, the person died from being hit by a car. The person in the car now is also dead since they caused a huge collision from the people behind them, and now the body count is in double digits because I wanted a plane ticket. But if I change it from 0.0025% to say about 5%, I could see more options of what could happen, and I can see that it's not as dangerous or as more dangerous and I shouldn't change the odds, Purple explained. Furthermore, if I said I wanted a plane ticket for free without anyone getting hurt or dying and change the score, it's easier for me to do and see that may or may not go wrong. The specifics are key, but just because we're not affected doesn't mean someone else isn't. It could be the most specific thing in the world and somehow it could offend a foreign diplomat and suddenly we have a nuclear war on our hands. It's better for me to change a small percentage or a specific thing. So if we asked you to change the odds to us rescuing Tommy to 100%, Wilbur asked. I can't see any possibilities after I've changed that. Meaning we saved Tommy, but how many of us are left alive after that? Will Tommy no longer be okay if we change it? Will we further traumatize him with our plans or something? Change things to 100% is probably not good from a moral standpoint. Have no morals? Then change the odds as you please. But you will change smaller things and help navigate through the lower levels of the compound? Phil asked. Purple nodded. I'm helping with this plan. If I have to change the odds, morals will be in the trash, Purple threatened more than stated. Not to mention, Tommy's our friend, and we're not going to sit in a room being babysat while Tommy's back with him, Ramu muttered. It's not right, Phil sighed. Ponk, he asked. Ponk locked his jaw. He'd change it, so I'd say yes. It's not worth fighting them over this, he sighed. Do you guys at least have a plan on how to integrate yourselves into this? All three shared a dangerous smile. The adults were suddenly reminded of how much of power the three held. George and Sapnap tried their very best to act normal in the car ride down. They knew that SBI had a 2-hour head start on them, and they'd be getting there fast and setting up around the compound. The general area, anyway. They'd have to wait until Dream came to disable the alarm system, or else as soon as anyone got in, teleportation or otherwise, the alarm would sound and Dream would be there in an instant. It'd be a decent sprint, but knowing Dream, it was entirely possible he could grab Tommy and run, and they'd never see him again. Either of them, really. "You're such an a-hole," Sapnap complained from the passenger seat. "How did you forget about us in the first place? We're literally the only two that can actually stick around you." Although not for much longer, Sapnap thought to himself. There was no way they were going to stick around him after what he'd done. They were kids. George's color still hadn't fully returned to his face after he had passed by Purple's room where Punk had been changing his bandages. The marks and the creases on his elbows were still evident and apparently enough to fully convince George of what happened, not to mention the scars from where it was obvious Purple had scratched himself out of anxiety. Seeing Tommy in pictures was eye-opening enough, but seeing Purple in person and everyone's extreme hate for Dream made them fully aware of the situation. What Dream had done was completely unforgivable, and this wasn't something they'd be able to get over. Ever. "I'm sorry," Dream exclaimed, laughing a little. "I had this whole trip planned out, and when you guys decided to tag along, it messed me up. I forgot you were there with me. I'm sorry." "It's like forgetting your children at a market," George huffed from the back seat. Both of them had been doing a pretty good job at acting like nothing was wrong. It was almost nice to joke around with him and pretend like he wasn't some heartless monster planning on destroying the world by abusing children, or whatever he was planning on doing with them. Dream laughed again at George's statement, wheezing a little bit. "Let's just get home," he replied. "Let's go to the warehouse," George piped out, slouching fully down in his seat, tapping away at his phone. "Put your seatbelt on." Sapnap rolled his eyes at George, who simply stuck out his tongue. "I'm an adult, and technically adults don't have to wear seatbelts in the back seat," George said. "In certain states. Put it on." Dream looked at him in the rearview mirror. George groaned, but sat up and put his seatbelt on. "Happy?" "Yes." George rolled his eyes and continued tapping on his phone, probably keeping updated on the rest of SPI and how things were going with them, but to Dream it just looked like he was on social media or something. "Are we going to the warehouse or not?" George huffed again. "I'm down. It's always fun to play. Keep away in there." Sapnap commented casually. "We can do that outside," Dream said. He hadn't said anything like that before. Usually he was always happy to have them hang out inside the warehouse. Everything he was doing now was highly suspicious. Sapnap was about to call him out on it too. "The forecast says it might rain, plus there could be a tropical storm coming soon," George said, holding out his phone showing the rainy forecast and giving Sapnap a brief but prominent stern look. Dream shrugged. "Sure. We can go to the warehouse. I just figured we could use the trees outside, but if the weather's bad, we can go to the warehouse," Dream replied. "We can even bunker down in the warehouse for the storm. That's the sturdiest building I've ever been in." "Haha, yeah," Dream said, letting his voice trail off. Sapnap shrugged and looked out the window at the car as the car was left in silence again. "Scene switch?" "Are we all set up?" Phil asked. Puffy nodded. "Yeah, everything around here is set. We have our hiding spots and the medic station all set up. Ponk, Carl, and Skeppy are staying there in case anyone gets hurt. Sam also almost finished setting up the lower cancellation trap. We're not quite sure how well or for how long it'll work, but we'll keep Dream in there while we're transporting him in case he wakes up, so he can't run," Puffy told him. Phil nodded. "Good." "Who's going in with us?" Purple asked. "I will," Phil said. "We need Wilbur and Techno out here in case Dream decides to run or fight. They'll be our most valuable resource before the fighting begins." "Fine by me," Purple replied. "Rambu, you know where to teleport, right?" Rambu nodded. "Puns and I went over the digital layout. I'm pretty confident I can teleport right into his cell. Even if we mess up, I can get us to the right floor," Rambu told them. "You'll be fine, Boo." Tubbo punched his arm and Rambu winced, rubbing at it. "Try not to get us in his cell. I'm sure Dream has extra security on it. It's best if you just get us on the floor. Finding which cell he's actually in will come later." Rambu nodded again. "Got it." "Nikki, are you ready?" Phil asked. Nikki stepped up and nodded. "I've got this. I just need to be within a 10-foot radius and I can direct all the gas to him," she told him. "Sounds good." "You got this, Nikki," Wilbur cheered. "We believe in you." "For Tommy," she said. "For Tommy," Wilbur confirmed. "I can't see all the way down, but I can confirm that Tommy's on the lowest level," Jack said, standing up from where he had been crouching down on the ground. His x-ray glasses not quite getting enough through all the floors under the ground. I could make better ones to see further, but they're not going to be done in the next 3 hours, and we don't have that kind of time. If he's on the lowest floor, he's probably being kept in his old cell. Dream knows it'll stir up some old memories and stuff. He's probably fixed it up and added to it, Purple told them. I almost forgot, Tubbo said as he handed Phil a gas bottle of strange liquid. Schlatt wanted me to give this to you. It'll burn through anything but glass and living things. It only takes a little bit. Burn through as much stuff as you need. Phil nodded. Thanks, Tubbo. Tell your dad the same. Tubbo nodded. Are we ready then? Phil asked. Everyone around him nodded. I'm calling for backup, Quackity said. Backup? Wilbur asked. Quackity nodded. I know a couple of people who will be willing to help, just in case. They'll stay on the outskirts of the forest in case anyone happens to try and get up by. Everyone has connections these days. I'm sure everything will work out. Do you trust these people? Techno asked. I trust them. I trust one of them with my life, Quackity replied. Techno nodded. Then let's go. We have half an hour before Dream gets here. Oh, pardon me. Scene skip. I don't know why you have such an intense security system, George whined. It's cold and it's getting dark. You remember when a kid broke in here? He had you down for a while, George, Dream said bitterly. Sapnap winced. Tommy probably hadn't meant to hurt them, but he just needed to get out of here, and Dream was definitely not taking it kindly to that. He's worried what that meant for Tommy, somewhere below them right now. Yeah, but you had that stuff before, and he still got in, George huffed. It's stupid. It's protection, Dream stated. What do you even have in there that's worth protecting? Your college and high school trophies, yearbooks, and memories? Hardly need this much stuff, Sapnap asked as Dream continued to attempt to disable the security device. I keep things that I need in here. Very precious and important things, Dream said. Cryptic, George huffed, crossing his arms but nodding to Sapnap as Dream back was turned. Sapnap nodded back as Dream disabled the alarm. There was a whoop and a popping noise. Faint, but Dream stiffened. You fricked up, Dream, Sapnap hiffed as soon as Dream felt what was searing pain in his left leg as it burned. And that's the end of chapter 15. Oh gosh, we finished these chapters really quickly. I think we're going to end it here, just to save it so we have 2 more chapters and it's not a super short stream for next time. These last 2 chapters are pretty long, but I think it'll still be a fine amount of stuff to read for next time. Oh, I got a yacht now. Oh, I was so sleepy for some reason. All that reading tired me out. So thank you guys for listening. We're going to end it here for now. Cliffhanger, yes. Will they rescue Tommy? Oh, no spoilers. Cliffhanger for now. We'll see how the plan goes next week. Thank you guys for listening, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all next time. Okay, yeah, I don't know. I'm losing my brain thoughts. So, bye guys. See you next time. Bye, 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 bye.